Zuraida, Dada, Acts of Resistance, Allyship, and Resiliency. This video is part of a conversation between Sandra Collins and Zuraida Dada. In this video, Sandra invited Zuraida to respond to the following prompt. In an earlier video, you shared some of your experiences of repression under apartheid. I wonder if you might now talk about the acts of resistance and the spirit of resiliency that carries forward into your work today.
I think it began with my parents. And the reason why I'm saying that is because my father had a business, and his cafe was the first cafe that allowed Black people to sit and eat. So just think about that for a moment. How ridiculous, how traumatic, how awful apartheid was. That people couldn't even have the dignity of sitting and eating. And in order for him to do that, he had to do a lot of, speaking to government officials, municipal officials. I don't know the extent to where he went to in order to get that license, but I can tell you it didn't just happen. So, that's a form of resistance, right? My mother was a nurse, and she was a midwife. And like I said, she was the first Indian midwife in and remains the first one in our community. And my mother, in her career, she delivered 7,000 babies. And my mother used to go clandestinely. I still remember. My mother couldn't tell us where she's going, but she would go to the neighboring Black neighborhood and go and deliver babies there because they didn't have access to health care. They didn't have access to, to a nurse. So my mother is actually known as the mother of our Indian town neighborhood, but she delivered a lot of babies, and she provided a lot of reproductive health care to women who were non-white, who were Black women, and she did that clandestinely. That's a form of activism. My sister was very involved in the anti-apartheid movement, burning flags, helping to bring across people from the Mozambican border. She was very involved in that as well. My brother, who is an extremely brilliant sportsman, and unfortunately, because of apartheid, he didn't have the ability to be able to benefit from his gifts. But he, clandestinely, became a part of a national squad that was the alternative to the national squad of South Africa. And he went and he played in so many tournaments against all white teams, and he was the only Indian person of color on those teams. And he was expressing to me the kind of racism that he experienced in terms of that too. But that in and of itself is also a form of resistance. Not allowing yourself to succumb to what other people think you should be because that is what their version of you is a form of resistance. Standing up for yourself, advocating for yourself is a form of resistance. And for me, participating in, for example, protests, right, at university or even at school, participating, knowing that the police are going to come, knowing that they're going to throw tear gas. All of those things is a form of resistance, and not being defined by what white people said who we are or who we should be. That's an active form of resistance. And, like for me, it was at university. I'm the first industrial psychologist because we weren't allowed to go into these fields, right? It wasn't open to us. And so, just studying something, studying psychology so that I can understand and help, people who don't have access to mental health, because I know what it was like. We didn't have access to that. We had no access to mental health. There was no such a thing in our environment. And when I speak from an allyship perspective, In South Africa, because we weren't allowed to stay in the central business district, and that's where my university was, there is what is called the nominee system that was created informally between whites and non-whites. I couldn't get an apartment downtown. Then I had white allied friends who would sign the lease in their name, and we would pay them a little bit more. We would pay them a fee, a stipend, if you like. So that's the allyship piece. And so the resiliency, when you speak about resiliency, I think it comes very much down to, I think the nub of resiliency is in recognizing who you are and accepting who you are and not giving ownership of your identity to anybody else. Because when you can be comfortable in who you are, when you can understand what your values are, values drive our behavior. And when you can be clear on who you are and what your values are, you will be able to live an authentic life and also a meaningful and a powerful life.